I received an early access copy of Vanishing Grace, a VR puzzle game coming to the Oculus Quest store on the 11th of February. This game will cost around $20 and in this review I cover the story, the audio visuals, the gameplay and the longevity before finally coming to a summary of my thoughts and giving a final score. Now in this review I will be showing some footage. I'll try not to show any spoilers such as me solving puzzles, but you will see different areas of the game, so if you don't want to see that, I recommend just skipping straight to the summary and the overall score. I'll start this review by talking a bit about this story. In Vanishing Grace, you play as Joel. He is a civil servant who has a quiet life until one day he discovers that his childhood friend Grace has disappeared, but her craft has reached the Citadel, the place where Joel lives, unmanned. Now it's at this point that Joel decides to leave everything behind and pilot Grace's craft, travelling around the desolate wastelands in an attempt to find out about her mysterious disappearance.
I hope you at least understand why I did all of this.
Now let's take a look at the audio visuals. The audio is okay. I wouldn't say there's any really memorable soundtracks that I can remember from this game. There is some background ambient music here or there. For example, one track I remember is this acoustic guitar that strums softly in the background, which is quite peaceful, calm and relaxing. And while the background music is okay, the voice acting can be a bit shaky at times. It definitely isn't the worst voice acting I've heard, but it's not the best either. And sometimes it does stop you from getting fully immersed in the story.
I hope this is recording. There we go. Hey, Joel.
As for the visuals, they are okay for the most part too. Everything is bright, colourful, and I particularly like looking around the inside of the craft. Now I'm not sure if that has anything to do with the graphics or the nostalgia from the different objects you find around, such as this Game Boy or this old computer. The textures, however, were a bit hit or miss. Some of them looked a bit low res, and I understand that the Quest only has a limited amount of power to play with, but it did seem that the game lacked a bit of polish when it came to some of the visuals. So now let's take a look at the gameplay, starting with the core element of any puzzle game, and that's the puzzles themselves. And they were easy. Pretty much without exception, every puzzle was fairly easy. And if you're wondering if it's just me, maybe I'm good at solving puzzles, well, I believe I'm fairly average, so if I'm finding it easy, I think most of you out there will also find it quite easy to solve these puzzles. And in fact, a lot of the tasks that the game had you do, I wouldn't even classify as puzzles. Some of the tasks involved finding hidden objects, and the hidden objects weren't that hard to find either. And in one task, I had to basically tidy up in virtual reality, which really was as boring as it sounds. And the one occasion where I actually did feel like I got stuck on a puzzle for more than a few minutes. These hints came in the form of Grace's voice, whether I wanted them or not, and it eventually just told me the answer, which really annoyed me because I wanted to figure it out for myself. And having hints in a puzzle game is fine as long as you have the option to turn them off, but there was no option to turn these hints off, so I had to have them whether I wanted the hints or not. And while we're on the subject of options, you did have teleportation or smooth locomotion mode. The locomotion mode was in the accessibilities option, which seemed a bit strange for me, but at least it was there so I could turn that on. Although it only had snap turn, I really prefer smooth turn, so I hope they add this in a future update. So at this point I'm really trying to find some redeeming features for this game, but unfortunately the criticisms don't end there. For example, the exploration element of this game is very limited. Your craft stops at certain checkpoints in the game, so you can get off the craft and look around a piece of the map. And it is at this point that I thought I'd really get to explore this strange world, but unfortunately these checkpoints don't consist of much at all. It's really just a small bit of land. It doesn't allow you to walk very far, there's not much to look at or even interact with. And all you do is fetch items that are very easy to find, put them in a box, and that's pretty much the scene over. You're back on your craft, heading off to find Grace again. So at this point I look at the story. Perhaps this is the outstanding element of this game, but I would say for me it was average at best. The story was one of the stronger points when it came to this game. Although I don't think it wins any awards, it did make me want to find out what happened to Grace, but I didn't feel any real connections to any of the characters in this game, and I felt that there were points in the game where it tried to make me feel something, tried to make me feel some kind of emotion for the characters by pulling on my heartstrings, but I never really felt anything for the characters, and it could be that I just have a cold, callous, unemotional heart, but I really think it's a product of the story. It just didn't get me to buy in to the characters enough to form a connection and feel any kind of emotion for them.
You knew that this would end up happening, that I would screw it up sooner or later. But you stuck by me, always trying to warn me.
And I hate to say this because I did really want to like this game, and it's not to say this game doesn't have some good elements. Travelling on this craft in the middle of nowhere trying to find your friend is a really novel concept, and I like the feeling you get as you operate the craft and fix its many different faults and malfunctions. There's also the way the inside of the craft changes as time passes and Joel settles into his new surroundings. But these little glimmers of potential are in no way big enough to save the game from its many faults. Now we look at longevity, and unfortunately it doesn't get any better here either. This game will only take you about 3 hours to complete, and once you're done, you're pretty much done. There's no real replayability with this game. With other games that are a bit on the short side like Mare, you have artifacts you need to collect to unlock the final ending. Or if we have a look at another short game like Vader Immortal, there is that dojo mode that can add an additional few hours of gameplay to your game, but there's nothing like that here. There is conversation trees, which means you get to choose from 2 alternate responses at key points in certain conversations. But I tested to see whether choosing a different response might affect the pathway you take in the game, and from what I could tell, it made no real difference.
I'm finally gonna do it.
In summary, this game was a bit of a letdown for me, and I did really try my best to like it, but I couldn't find any part that was really outstanding for me. It was really all quite mediocre. So Vanishing Grace gets a score of 2 out of 5 headsets from me. And I know this is an indie game, so maybe I'm expecting a bit too much, but it is on the Oculus Quest store, and it is asking Oculus Quest store prices, so I'm going to evaluate it as such. So in sum, the audio visuals were okay, the gameplay was a bit of a letdown with the puzzles being way too easy, the story being unremarkable, and the environments lacking imagination. And when we look at the longevity, it will probably take you about 3 hours to complete this one, and it just feels over far too soon. Now I know this review has been mostly criticisms, but that's not to say this is the worst puzzle game I've played on the Quest, because it's not. This game does have its charms and have its redeeming moments. But when I think of the library of puzzle games that the Oculus Quest has on offer, and this includes side quest games, there are just other puzzle games out there that I would much rather spend my money on. Thank you for watching as always. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, do remember, hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be kept up to date with everything happening on this channel. And I'll see you in the next video.